Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like expecting the leadership of a team captain on the football field, but getting a sea captain. You wouldn't settle for just anything for your team. Shouldn't it be the same for your insurance? So don't settle for just any insurance when you can go with a leader. State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
All right. And we are live. What's up, everybody? Week 2 action is nigh. It is right here. We are ready to jump in. Welcome into the Falcons Podcast with me, Garrett Chapman here. Very excited to do this because we have 4 looming questions here for the Atlanta Falcons coming into week 2 with JJ McCarthy, the soon-to-be father, JJ McCarthy. Congratulations to him. He just went to the hospital with his wife, or I guess his fiance, excuse me. And they're going to welcome in their first son. And so we're really excited for them, even if they are on the opposition. That's still a really exciting thing for him. But welcome in. I see a bunch of people already starting to jump into the podcast. Welcome. Play a stat says, you're what's up, brother? Dantes Jackson hits me up. He said he's got the red and black, man. He's ready to go. Dantes always does a great job. So welcome in. And Atlanta Falcons on SI. I just want to remind everybody, stars are the number one way to support all Falcons and help us bring you more and more Atlanta Falcons content. So make sure to drop a rating if you're listening in on the spot on Spotify or something after the fact. Make sure to rate the podcast. Give us 5 stars. I'd really appreciate that. If you're watching on Facebook, throw us a like. Maybe share it. Maybe let your other folks see it. If you're on Twitter, give me a follow at GChapATL. Also, that repost button is also very helpful if you want to do that as well. But YouTube folks, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to drop a comment. Let us know how you think we're doing. But I will be taking your questions here. Ski, what's up, my man? What's up? I will be taking your questions. If you have score predictions, if you have thoughts on the matchup, if you have expectations, whatever it is, somebody you're looking, what's the matchup to watch? Do you have a question for me? Drop it in the comments and we'll get to it here after I get through these 4 questions. But tonight, I want to start with our first 4 big questions that I have for the Atlanta Falcons coming into this week. I know last week was a frustrating one. It was frustrating. You know, it's not because you start 0-1. It's not because of the way you lose the game. It's whatever. It's the fact that it's a divisional opponent. For the last 7 years, it seems like you can't get off the mat to start the week. But for most of those years that you do end up having the losing record, the Falcons have actually done decently well in weeks 2. This is going to be a difficult test, though. I mean, this is a Brian Flores unit that's led on defense. And then O'Connell, I mean, Kevin O'Connell's probably one of the best offensive, not even probably, he is one of the very best offensive minds in football right now. He's got a rookie quarterback, effectively a rookie quarterback. Very similar situation to where we have Michael Penix here. It's just 3 fewer starts here, but he did lead that game-winning drive against the Chicago Bears. But there were bright spots on Sunday for the Falcons. I mean, you see Divine Diablo, you see Michael Penix, you see Kyle Pitts get really involved in this game. But you're still on one. You have to be able to finish down the stretch. And that was what happened to this team last time. They went up to Minnesota, and you're tied at 21. It was one of the biggest blowouts that you had of the season last year, but it's not because of what you did in the first 3 quarters. It's what you did in the last quarter of that game. Similar to what Minnesota did up on Monday. What did they do there? They come out and they drop a lot of points. They outscored them 21. I believe it was 21-7. They outscored the Chicago Bears. Not great. Not great if you're looking at the Falcons. You have to finish stronger here on Sunday Night Football. But you have lots of bright spots, lots of things that you can look at. But as far as things that I'm watching for here in this first game, the first and foremost, it's the obvious choice. It's who's attempting kicks. The most frustrating part about this game is the fact that Younghoe Koo comes out and misses a game-tying field goal. It seemed like this was going to be the thing that was going to be a bugaboo for this team. So you bring in Lenny Krieg, and that's your offseason competition. And in hindsight, I talked about this on Tuesday. I don't know how much of a real competition it was necessarily. And I don't know how fair that is to say necessarily, but Captain Hindsight. I just don't want to be Captain Hindsight here, but it didn't feel like it was a legitimate competition. And then Raheem Morris's comments basically calling Lenny Krieg a developmental piece kind of solidified that thought process. And I've had a couple days now to sit on it and stew on it. And I think that's kind of where I stand on this. And I do think that Younghoe Koo is going to be the starting kicker for the Falcons on Sunday. Parker Romo, we had a chance to talk to him today. He's got as good a chance as anybody to be the starting kicker here in this game. And take it with a grain of salt or take it for what you will. Joe Patrick tweets about it. I was at practice and I saw it for myself. He was the guy lining up alongside of Bradley Binion, the punter. Those two were working out, trying to do like the new kickoff situation. So it's like they're trying to put it into the landing zone, if you will. And he was the guy doing it. And he was the guy lining up next to him. Younghoe Koo was over there with Lenny Krieg on the other field. They were just taking field goals. And maybe it's Younghoe trying to, and Younghoe Koo had fulfilled those responsibilities for the Falcons, or at least he did in week 1. And again, I don't want to read too deep into the tea leaves here. I don't want to confuse anybody or bury the lead here. I do think he's going to be kicking on Sunday. I just think the Falcons want to put as little on his plate as possible. I think they want him to be fully focused on just kicking and converting field goals. And for Parker Romo, they're just trying to see what they can get out of him. Younghoe Koo talked a little bit about, Raheem Morris talked a little bit about this when they signed Romo. He basically says, he's like, I'm trying to see what all this guy can do. And that's what he did today at practice. And I think ultimately they're going to keep an eye on him. And we weren't able to see the actual physical kicking competition. That portion of practice was closed to the media. So it remains to be seen officially who the guy is that's going to be kicking for the Falcons on Sunday. I just think it's going to be Younghoe. But he has a very, very short leash. That is true. All right. I see some comments jumping in here. I'm going to go ahead and jump in to answer some of these comments. Welcome in to all you good folks. Ski says, what's happening? GC on YouTube. What's up, my man? Harry Marshall Wood III says, I'm so used to saying good morning, everybody. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Of course, he was talking about Nick and Scott and those guys. They come out on Mondays and Wednesdays in the morning, and they do a great job. And I'm very happy that I can come in here and kind of fill up the evening hours because it's open time. And look, there's tons of great times to talk some Atlanta Falcons, and this is one of those opportunities here. Derek Hart wants to drop in a record prediction. It says we will be 3-1 going into the Bills game. Hey, now that would mean you have wins over the Vikings on Sunday. You would have a win over Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders, and then you would have a win over the Carolina Panthers. Look, if they could do that, that'd be fantastic. I think ultimately a 2-2 record is right where the team wants to be. Obviously, you want to be 3-1. Everyone wants to win every game, just like you want to stay healthy, just like you want to whatever else. But I think 3-1 is ambitious based off of what we saw and the teams that you're going to be facing. You've struggled a lot in Carolina, just over the last couple of years, I should say. And I'd like to see the Falcons win that game. I think they absolutely can win that game. I think they were largely the better team on Sunday against the Bucs. They lose anyway. They just got to close better, and we talked to Jesse Bates earlier today. He talked a lot about how they had opportunities to take a couple footballs away. Look, if you don't take advantage of your takeaway opportunities, you're not going to get a lot of opportunities to do that. So you have to take advantage of them. But 3-1, ultimately, Derek Hart, thank you for the comment. I think that's pretty good. That might be pretty good. My best case scenario. And I like your optimism. Dantes Jackson says, do you think Zach Robinson will open up the playbook more? I'd like to think so. There were a lot of things that I did not like from what Zach Robinson did in this game. And again, I went back and rewatched all of it, and I took a couple of notes, and some of these things I'm going to keep to myself just so we can build up a sample size and kind of keep an idea of, get a more holistic, bigger picture view of what's going on with Zach Robinson and his play calling style. But I did see a lot more 2 tight end sets. I did see a stubbornness to not to stop going to the outside or whatever. And I just say ultimately I would lay as much on poor blocking on the perimeter as I would Zach Robinson's play calling. Now, I've been critical of Zach Robinson in the past. I know a lot of people on this channel have been critical of Zach Robinson. I've heard a lot of people have. And I think he kind of got a pass for a lot of the shortcomings of the offense last year. I think ultimately a lot of that had to do with the fact that you have Kirk Cousins who just sort of bottomed out Dantes. But I think he's going to be under a microscope here over the next couple of weeks. Jeff Ulbrich and his defense, I think, looked solid. But that's not the side of the ball that you're going to be counting on to win football games over the course of the season. It's this young quarterback. It's all those skill players that you have. You've invested a lot of capital into this offense, and Zach Robinson has all the tools. You have all the tools. And I think Elijah Wilkinson largely did okay in this game. But I think Zach Robinson's got to do better. I mean, he had a poor week 1 performance last year and turned around and bounced back after that. So we'll see what he can do. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt until then. But that leash is not very long. Let's just be very clear about that fact. I want to see Michael Penix be able to throw the ball down the field. I want to see him do some of those things. I think that's going to be critical for this team because if you don't have that explosive offense, and a lot of that I think has to do with Darnell Mooney not being available. Drake London goes down with an injury. But it's not an excuse. In the NFL, it's next man up, and you have to be able to have something in your play calling to make your looks more diverse. And I don't think he did a good enough job of that. We'll see. Verdict is still to be determined. And again, I'm going to keep a lot of my notes to myself just because sample size is not big. It's not big, at least for 2025. So we'll see. William Amy over there on Facebook says, I'm concerned about this play calling, that pistol play calling got to go. I think it was Mark Ramondi from ESPN. He tweeted something along the lines of this unit had 46% of their offensive snaps out of the pistol, which is by far and away the most in the NFL. I tend to agree. It's just they really love their pistol formation. I hate it under center. I think running a pistol formation under center just, chops you off at the knees. It makes your short yardage situations that much more difficult. And I think lining up under center just makes more sense. And if Michael Penix isn't comfortable doing that, well, tough. Like you have to get him comfortable doing that, at least doing it more consistently. And I think you're handicapping your offense and what you're capable of doing. Excuse me. Harry Marshall Wood III says Rook was highly rated when it came to pressures from his position across the league. I think Rook largely did pretty well. The defensive line as a whole, I think was average. I would say it was okay. It wasn't awesome. I'd say the 4-person pressures, I think they did a decent enough job. They had a 40% pressure rate in this game. I think Brandon Dorlus was left a little to be desired. David Onyemata, I think was asked to do something he wasn't really super comfortable with playing in the interior like he was. But Rook, I'd say, did a pretty decent job in this game. And I'm encouraged to see what else he can do down the stretch. But they did get some good pressure, but they have to be better about getting contained, especially against this JJ McCarthy-led offense. Just like you saw with Baker, I think it was 5 first downs that he had, but all of them were on scrambles. Picked them all up with his legs, and a lot of them were broken play. Well, they were all broken plays. None of them were designed runs. So You got to be better about that, and you have to maintain your rush integrity while also going and getting some pressure. Let's see. Edwidge Bon Macho says Atlanta Falcons will have the worst record comparatively to who? I mean, you say that they're going to have the number 1 overall pick? I completely disagree with that. I think that's a kind of a poor take because they're not the worst team in the league. They're not even close. I think they're closer to being in the middle than they are to the top, but they're much closer to the top than they are to the bottom. Let's be very clear about that. Maybe he's probably not even a Falcons fan. He's not a supporter, but welcome anyway. Glad you're watching. Glad you're giving us some views. Glad you're supporting us with comments. So appreciate you. K9 Rottweiler says, how many passing yards for Penix 300 plus? I'd ultimately say that maybe this is a controversial take. I don't want Michael Penix throwing for 300-yard games. Not at this stage in his career. I want them to be running the football effectively. I think that is more important, K9. Can they run the ball? And ultimately, you have to do better than what you did last week against Tampa. And actually, that gets me into my next point for my questions about the Atlanta Falcons. So if you have any other questions, whether your questions about the Atlanta Falcons, things that you want to see them do better, things that you were impressed by week 1, maybe a score prediction, something like that, drop them into the comments. We'll continue to take those as we go. But K9 actually got me into an interesting point here because this is my second big thing that I'm going to be looking at for the Falcons on Sunday. It's, can they run the ball? You average 2.18 yards per carry on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's not good enough. It's not good enough. And look, this is a Tampa team who was top 4 against the run last year. They're very good. You have Vita Vea. You have guys in you have guys in that front 7 that are very, very effective, right? That's a stout front. You have a really good play caller in Bowles, and I'd say that they made the Falcons uncomfortable. And I think that the Bucs ultimately dictated what the Falcons were going to be able to do, and that was the short passing game. They got decent enough pressure, but I think Michael Penix did an exceptional job when he was under pressure. You look at a lot of the advanced metrics. I think he was 3rd, 4th in the league or so when he was under pressure and how he performed. But I don't want to see him in that situation too much. He threw the ball 42 times. That's almost double how many times they carried the ball. Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson, they're one of the best running back duos. I'd say they're second in the league, maybe at best 1B to what they have up in Detroit with Gibbs and Montgomery, but that's not a bad place to be ultimately. And I think this group specifically has to be better, especially if you're going to deal with these injuries at the wide receiver position. 22 carries for 48 yards between those two is just not good enough. It's not good enough, especially when you're talking about what you're now going to be facing on Sunday, because yes, Tampa has a really good front 7. Yes, Tampa was very effective at stopping the run last year, but the Vikings were better last year at it. And they had the second best run stuffing team in the league. They allowed just 93 yards on the ground. And the league best EPA per rush allowed in the NFL last year. This group is tough. This group is going to be a really, really difficult test. And the Falcons need to find some more success. And ultimately, it opens up the rest of your offense. It opens up play action, which I want to see them attack the middle of the field on their play action. Going back to what we were saying about Zach Robinson. I want to see them attack the middle of the field more. I want them to be more effective in that part of their offense. But ultimately, if you're not able to run the ball effectively, then it renders a lot of your offense meaningless. You have to be able to run the ball. And this is a Falcons team that's built to run the ball well. I need to see it more effectively. I need to see it certainly more consistently. Zach Robinson said it's going to be a focal point for him. Michael Penix talked about it being a focal point for this offense coming into this week. But I don't want to see Michael Penix throw the ball 42 times. I think that means that there are other things that are working against the Falcons, if that is to be the case. That's the second big thing. So we've got running the ball effectively. Who is attempting the kicks? And then number 3, we're going to say, what's the health of the wide receiver position? Because this is the other big thing facing the Falcons, folks. This is the other big thing. And we had another player added to the injury report on Wednesday. Casey Washington picks up a concussion. He was again not practicing today. Drake London, Darnell Mooney. Both of them have shoulder injuries. Darnell's dating back all the way to July. Both of them were at practice today. They were both limited at practice today. But it's worrisome. It's worrisome. I talked a lot about what I thought this wide receiver unit is and what it can be this season. I think if they stay healthy, they could be very good, at least top 10 or so in the NFL potentially. That's good. they just can't stay healthy right now. And Casey Washington, I mean, Ray McLeod is not a top option at wide receiver. He's just not. And he's a good player. He's a good role player. And he's a good support type piece, but he's not somebody who you can lean on in the passing game. And when you have a quarterback as talented as Michael Penix is, it's still only his 5th start. He's making his 2nd road start of his career. He's going to be on prime time for the 2nd time of his career. We have an idea of who Michael Penix is. I wrote a whole piece about how the Falcons already knew who they had, but then the rest of the world is now just starting to catch up and realize just how talented this guy is. I don't think he's going to be shaken by a lot of things, but if you don't have healthy wide receivers to catch the football, then what does it matter? You need to have your guys ready to go. And I think Michael Penix is going to be able to elevate his guys as best he can. But I mean, how much can you rely on the short passing game, not even the intermediate passing game? A lot of these plays that he was making on Sunday came 5 yards or less. The touchdown throw that he had, 50-yard touchdown throw to Bijan Robinson, came on a dump off, and he took it 50 yards for a touchdown. And that's great because that shows how talented Bijan Robinson is. But I want to see this offense be able to throw the ball down the field. And the health of Darnell Mooney is paramount for that. And then what is this offense without its top target with Drake London? I don't want to find out. I don't want to see that, especially in this early part of the season where wins are going to be hard to come by. I know we had another comment earlier. It says we're going to be 3-1. I hope so. If you come into the bye week at 3-1, that's a playoff team. That's a team who's shaping up to have a really, really nice season. 2-2 probably feels a little bit more realistic before the schedule kind of opens up a little bit. But you got a slog, man. You got to get through these first couple of weeks, man. And you cannot afford to do so banged up. You already have the right tackle situation. You already have, look, you've got injuries across the board, and you need these guys to be healthy and ready to go. But the wide receiver position, I mean, it makes me worried. I mean, especially when you have Drake London, who accounts for 40+% of the targets for Michael Penix over the last 3 weeks of the season last year. He's clearly the number one guy. But we'll see what they actually look like. I think that they're trending towards playing. I said that about Darnell Mooney last week, and it kind of burned me a little bit. But no, I mean, Raheem Morris said he's very confident in Drake's ability to come out and just will through this game and be tough. And Darnell, I think, he's been limited all this week after not participating for some of practices last week. So we'll see. It's just an ongoing situation. And like I said, it's something to follow. Friday's practice is generally indicative of what you can expect on Sunday. So we'll take a look, and whenever we get a report, I'll be at practice, and whenever we find out some more.
Witness the fight the boxing world has been waiting for on Netflix. Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford face off for the first time in their legendary careers for the Super Middleweight Championship in Las Vegas. The winner will walk away the greatest of their era. Watch Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford Saturday, September 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Live only on Netflix.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
I'll let you know. All the more reason to give me a follow at GChapATL. And I'm going to take a quick water break. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to take a sip of water here. But while we're at it, make sure to drop a like here right below. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't already. If you are, thank you so much. And then drop a comment. Let us know what you want to talk about. Let me know if you have any questions, any comments, anything else like that. But give me 2 seconds. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the folks who just hit the subscribe button. Thank you. All right. Let's keep on rolling through. Stephen B says, we'll get to our fourth point here in just a moment. I want to roll through some comments and see kind of how you folks are feeling. I'm going to just do a status check here. Stephen B comes through, says, game plan should include 10+ touches for Pitts, especially if the wide receiver position is banged up like it is. You saw him take a bigger role down the stretch here for the Falcons, and the guy had 6 catches, I believe, go for first downs. He was getting down the field, and I saw the effort from him, and I think he had probably one of the best games that not a lot of people talked about, because you have 59 yards or something like 60 yards in this game, no touchdown. And then people were like, oh, okay, whatever. It wasn't what I saw on the stat sheet. It was what I saw on film, on the field on Sunday that made me impressed. I think he is going to be a bigger part of the game plan. I think he will be either way. I think you adding Kyle Pitts to a game plan and him being at his best, I think it adds another layer that we haven't really had here in Atlanta since his rookie year. That's a really important piece of this puzzle, because if you have Drake London on one side, you have him getting into the intermediate on one side, you have Kyle on the other side, getting in with the intermediates on that side. You have a dump-off option with Bijan Robinson and a deep threat with Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod. Good God. That is this offense at its very best. And you have a quarterback who's able to hit those deep shots. You have an offense then skill-wise that is on par with just about anybody in the NFL. That's really, really good. Now, that's contingent on Kyle continuing to progress and be that guy for the Falcons. We just haven't seen it consistently. So I'd really like to see that consistency from him. We saw it on Sunday, but he's historically had success against Tampa, at least with Zach Robinson as his offensive coordinator. We'll see if it continues in Minnesota, because, I mean, if I remember correctly, he didn't do very well in that game against Minnesota. I don't think a lot of people did very well in that game in Minnesota, at least in that fourth quarter. But yes, I do believe he's going to be a big part of this game plan, especially given the health situation that this team is in. Sam Klontz II comes in and says, do you think Romo will be on the active roster come Sunday? My opinion, no, I don't think he is. I think he's going to remain on the practice squad for the Falcons on Sunday with a short leash for Younghoe. You know, I love Younghoe Koo. I think the world of him, and I think he does a really good job, or used to do a really good job. But you talk about the emotional capital or whatever that Raheem Morris said. I think Younghoe's got it still, unless something changes in practice that we're just not aware of. But I'm not aware of any of those developments, just because none of that's public. So things can change. Like if Younghoe doesn't respond well to this new kicker battle, then, I mean, yeah, Romo is going to be the guy. But based off of things that I have heard, based off of things that I have seen with my own eyes, no, I don't think Romo is going to be the guy. But obviously these things change very quickly. Hopefully we get some kind of clarity before Sunday, but I think Sunday is all the more reason to keep a close tabs on everything we got going on over at Falcons on SI. Derek Hart says, if we can establish run game early and get a few sacks, I think we can dominate game 27-17. Dominate, maybe not. I don't think dominate's necessarily the right word. In a perfect world, sure, but I don't think that dominate is going to be a part of this game. This is still, I mean, JJ McCarthy showed just why this front office in Minnesota had as much confidence as they did in him going through this draft process and moving on from Kirk Cousins. And, you know, I mean, you have Sam Darnold and you're more than happy to let him walk, especially given the way last season went. You know, you won 14 games with him. Now, the playoff game that you had, notwithstanding, it was a disaster. But, I mean, that was a really good, really, really good Minnesota team. I don't think it has as much to do with Sam Darnold as it did everybody else on that team. You know, I mean, this is a really talented bunch, and they can jump on you in a hurry. They showed that on Monday against the Bears. A Bears team that I'd say is relatively comparable to what the Falcons are. Just in general, I think you talk about the skill players that they have, and the defense is solid up there in Chicago. And I think this is just a really good Minnesota team. So dominate is not a word that I would use necessarily, Derek, but I think if they do get the running game going, I think that's going to be a really important key for them in this game. Thank you for the comment. Edwin Bonmacho says Younghoe is a great kicker. The problem is the coach, and that's why he was fired by the Bucs. He was fired by the Bucs like 12 years ago, guys. Like 12 years ago. And that was such a long time ago. Such a long time ago. That doesn't even factor into my wavelength. He was a Sean McVay type of coach where he was the young upstart and he made mistakes. He did. And I don't think that's necessarily something we need to hold over his head, especially year two. His time with the Bucs doesn't factor into this equation for me. I mean, of course, it's part of your sample size. It's part of what you are. And you are what your record says you are, but that was 12 years ago. So no, I'm not putting too much stock into that. He says, Edwin also comes in and says, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name there. It says no chance against the Bills. That's week 6 coming out of the bye week. We got a long way to go before we get to the Bills. We'll keep on going through. Edwidge says Tampa Bay missed 2 field goals and an extra point. How many Super Bowl Atlanta wins? All right, whatever. I'm moving on. Edwidge, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your support and everything else. So we'll keep on rolling through. Says play a stat says don't care how many times Q has bailed us out before missing in the most kicker-friendly stadium and is inexcusable. I've never fully trusted him past 35 yards. Anyway, it's your home field, man. No excuses. Yeah, I mean, that's why they brought in competition. Play stats. I mean, that's exactly why they brought in competition. Never trusting him. I mean, I don't think never is a good time. And that's kind of revisionist history here. And I'm not willing to do that on my channel necessarily, just because I think he has been the most reliable player on this team over the last 7 years or so, 6 years since he's been here, pretty consistently outside of last season. And now on Sunday, it's changed. Things change. And look, this league is a what have you done for me lately league, probably the epitome of that. And you see that out in San Francisco where Jake Moody got cut. It is what it is at the kicking position. And Raheem Morris said as much. He said, if you make kicks, you're good. If you don't make kicks, sorry, you can't be our guy. And it's just that cut and dry here. You don't have 10 other guys on your team who are, coming around and backing you up and supporting you in that way. It's just not part of the position, and I mean, he was Mr. Reliable from 40 yards. He was very good. He bailed you out several times, to your point, Playa. So I think it's just about that time that the Falcons are going to move on. And I think that's kind of what the plan is right now. They're going to give him one more shot, I believe, to make that mistake. And if he makes a mistake, then it's done. And you have Romo in here to come in and be the guy for you. I think Lenny Krieg, like they said, is developmental prospect, and they're going to sit and wait on him. Here we go. Derek Hart, I think he's making a prediction here. So he says Penix goes 21 to 33 for 276 yards. We run for 142 yards. Defense 4 sacks, rise up. 142 rushing yards is, I think, a lot to ask on this type of Vikings defense. I think ultimately that would be a great game plan, because if that works for you, you're absolutely winning this game. If you get close to 150 yards on the ground, generally speaking, if you do that in the NFL in general, you're probably going to win a football game, right? You're probably winning that game, especially, I mean, you're talking about this unit getting 400 yards here, my man. That's a lot here. And I don't think that you're going to get 276 yards and 142 yards on the ground. You're just not going to be able to pile up that kind of offense against this well-coached Vikings team on the road on Sunday Night Football. It's their home opener. And I think they're going to be juiced up, especially the way they played on Monday. Maybe the game, extra day of rest, maybe that helps you, but you're so early in the season that I don't think it's going to have as much of an impact in this game. They've had a lot of time to game plan and get ready for this game. And these coaches know each other really well, too. Kevin O'Connell and Raheem Morris, they coached together in Los Angeles. And Zach Robinson, of course, worked with O'Connell when he was out there, too. So these coaching staffs are pretty intertwined here. They'll be ready. They'll be ready to go. Both teams are. And hopefully you're right, Derek. Hopefully you're right. Trenton says, but Garrett, we're still not getting it with only 4. That's the problem. We have to take 1 from coverage to get home. That's why Bowman got 1. Yeah, they did send a lot of blitzes. I was just saying earlier that they need to be better in those 4-man fronts. When you are sending for rushers, you have to be more effective. And that's where this team struggled last year. To your point, Trenton. I mean, this is not historically a very effective pass rush. But you're also dealing with a lot of young guys. And I think that there's going to be progress. You hope that there's going to be progress a little bit later on in the season. And hopefully you can get pressure with 4. I'd like to see them start getting that, because this is a team who, even when they sent blitzes, generally they were not very effective at getting the pressure that they needed last year. I'd say that you still did a decent enough job getting pressure in this game. You only got the 1 sack, to your point, Trenton. And I mean, it's just one of those things that it's going to be an evolving thing over the course of the season. And you're facing another big time rusher, a very athletic quarterback. He's on a dual threat necessarily. It's not like Jaden Daniels or Lamar Jackson or guys like that, Josh Allen, but like the guys that you're going to be facing here very soon, like Josh Allen in week 6. But this is a guy who can move in the pocket. He can get around. And I mean, Jeff Oberg even said it, or maybe it was Jesse Bates even said that he was even faster than Jim Baker is. So that's something that you got to keep your head on and make sure that you don't get beat there. The pressure is going to be especially important, especially given the fact that he's a young quarterback and he's not used to getting all that kind of pressure here. The Bears did a decent enough job of doing that, but I think the Falcons, the onus is on them. They need to come in and get a good job. Lil Marquis says, let me join. You're in, man. You're in. Welcome in. Let's see. Stephen B says, y'all keep dreaming that you can dump Koo and find a nicer date like they grow on trees. Yeah, I mean, like that's the other thing. Stephen, this is a good point. I'm not cheering on the idea that they're getting rid of Younghoe Koo. Younghoe Koo has been the most consistent player. Like I said earlier, one of the most consistent players in this organization for the last couple of years. The guy was money. He was making 89, 90% of his kicks just in general. And it matters. That is critical, because that means you're sending your guy out there and 9 times out of 10, he was making those kicks. It's just the problem is it hasn't been that way. He's been 31st in the NFL among 30th or 31st among qualified kickers in the NFL since the beginning of last year. And he's just not making the kicks that he needs to. And in a zero-sum position like kicker, you have to be better. Harry Marshall Wood III says, run game definitely has me concerned. He's over there on Facebook. Thanks for watching over there. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that ultimately your rush defense, when it was just going up against like a Bucky Irving or something like that, I would actually say the defense did decently well. I get worried when they go into their nickel front because, I mean, you have Billy Bowman, who's a little bit smaller. You have a defensive line that's already small. And that's when they kind of found success. Tampa did. But when you're in your base defense, I'd actually say that the defense did really well, like really well. And that kind of gives me some hope for where they could move in and kind of add and develop in that way. But Billy Bowman is not a very big guy. He's bigger than D. Alford, I guess you could say, thickness wise, but he's still not a very large person. So they're going to take advantage of that. And look, my biggest concern, and this was one of my biggest concerns coming into the season, is that you are a little light on the back end, or not in the back, or just on defense in general. It's that teams are going to send out an extra wide receiver so that you have to match them in nickel, and they're just going to run you over. That's my biggest concern for the Falcons right now. So to your point, Harry, yeah, I mean, the run game does have me run defense. I now see that you're talking about our run game. Run defense has me very concerned, but run game absolutely does as well. Thank you for the comment, Harry. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier in the pod, I mean, look, 48 yards from your top 2 running backs is just not good enough. It's not good enough. And I think you see a little bit of, I mean, ultimately, I think Charlie Warner had his worst game as a Falcon on Sunday. And he hasn't gotten a lot of hate for that. Hate's not the right word, but he hasn't been criticized really all that much from where I've seen. Just when I went back and watched the film, he was missing, and you have other plays where like Drake London, you need him. He's your top blocking wide receiver. He misses blocks. And if you whiff on blocks, you're going to get beat. And especially if you have a wide zone scheme where you're trying to get out on the edge, you got to block on the perimeter. You have to hit your blocks there. And far too often we saw the Falcons whiff. And that's got to be better, especially against a very fundamentally sound team like the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to keep taking a couple more comments, and I'm going to get into my 4th and final question that I have for the Falcons coming into the second game of the season. The final question for the second game of the season against the Minnesota Vikings. Stephen B says, how dare you say the INT word during a discussion on offseason MVP Michael Penix? Yeah, I mean, he is the offseason MVP. He hasn't thrown a pick yet, not this year. No, I mean, he's been, as far as turnover-worthy throws, he doesn't have a lot of them. He didn't have a lot of them last year either. So, I mean, he's been very efficient. He's been very effective when he drops back and asks to throw the ball. He makes good decisions with the football. But we'll keep on rolling. All right. So I'm going to jump into this last one. If you have more comments, I'm going to keep getting to your comments as much as I can. Thank you so much. We've got 100+ people here in the pod just across all platforms. So I really appreciate everybody spending their Thursday night with me here. We've got a great Thursday night football matchup. How about that, by the way? Thank God that we have some really good football on Thursdays. I'm excited about that just in general. And I know the Falcons will be playing on Thursday a little bit later on in the season. I'm excited for that one and just kind of get a preview of what Amazon's going to do. I saw they had some Some interesting new data points that they're going to display here in this game. I think it'll be fun. We'll see. But no, let me get into this last point here for the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday. And it's the fact that, I mentioned it before. The new look defense was going to be criticized or at least looked under gone through the fine tooth comb. Let's put it that way. And I would say largely the defense did well. You held Baker in this offense, pretty good offense, to just 17 points up until that final drive where they picked you apart and they killed you on that one. You had another touchdown drive that you allowed where it's after you allowed a 50-yard kick return. They get the ball up into plus territory and they score a touchdown on that one. So it was just the one touchdown drive that you allowed in this game where you cap it off with Bucky Irving. And you had the long play to Emeka Egbuka earlier in the game. So ultimately, I'd say that the defense played pretty well, but the difference between playing pretty well and us talking about Younghoe Koo and everybody else, it's the fact that they dropped too many gimmies. Just too many gimmies. You have Caden Ellis with a walk-in pick six early in this game. If he picks that ball off and he goes and gets a pick six there, this game is completely different. Xavier Watts dropped 2 interceptions. Well, he dropped 1, really, and he had another opportunity to make a deflection on another, but he was just a fraction of a second late, and that was on the Emeka Egbuka touchdown. We're talking about a completely different game here. Divine Diablo drops an interception. These are the little things, the one individual moments that if one of those goes your way, we're potentially talking about a different football game, a different outcome here. Because I'll say it again. I said it earlier in the pod. I said it on Tuesday. I said it on Sunday after the game. The Falcons were largely the better team on Sunday. Largely. But it doesn't matter because you didn't win. So it's a moot point. But I need to see them step up and make these big plays. Jesse Bates said it today that they had 3 or 4 different plays that they could have had turnovers. And look, turnovers are the number one thing that flip a game on its head. Well, game script be damned. If you throw interceptions or you fumble the ball, you're not doing a whole lot. Not a lot else is working. But on top of that, just turnovers are one thing. We talked about pressure rates, right? You saw a QB hit from James Pierce on the final drive for the Bucs. You saw, Billy Bowman got beat to the outside and he loses contain on Baker and he gets up and he scrambles for about 10, 15 yards. You got to finish sacks. You got a good pressure rate. And I think that was one of the more impressive parts of this game. But you have to finish out drives with sacks, right? The Bakers, I think it was his quarterback coach or somebody, who some video that I was watching, and his coach was basically coming through and saying, if you get a sack on a drive, the success rate that ends with that, basically just success meaning touchdown, they end in a touchdown on just 7% of drives. Sacking quarterbacks makes a big old difference in every play. And I don't need to tell you that. It's an obvious thought, but the team needs to finish these sacks. And that's one of the big things, especially against a rookie quarterback. I keep calling him a rookie, a guy making his second start here on prime time. He's at home, and I think the juices are going to be high. So maybe you get an interception early in this game. Maybe he airmails something and Jesse Bates comes in and gets a pick. But you have to finish the play. You have to make the completion, or you have to squeeze the football and make sure you're going the other way with it, right? And the Falcons had opportunities to do that on Sunday, but they did not take advantage. All right. Those are my 4 keys. So number 1, what is the kicking game? Who is the guy making kicks? Number 2, can the Falcons run the football effectively? 3, what is the health of the wide receiver position coming into Sunday? And 4, will the defense finish plays? Those are your 4 questions. Those are mine. If you have some of yours, make sure to drop those in the comments and we'll talk about it. But for now, I'm going to continue to take some of your questions here for the next little bit, and then we'll say sayonara and go watch some Thursday night football together. All right, so we'll keep on rolling through here. Yeah, Harry Marshall the Wood the third says, yeah, London and Mooney are both out this week. They're not out this week. It's going to be a tough haul. They're limited in practice. They're practicing. They're not out. I want to be very clear about that. It says if. All right, so he follows it up. So it says he comes in, very important if. Your whole point is contingent on these two letters right here. So yes. So Harry, to your point, yeah, if they are out, yes, you are exactly right. That would be very tough sledding. I don't think that they're going to be out. I think at least one of those guys is going to play. But again, I'm not those guys, and I mean, things change. So I want to think that Friday is going to be a lot more telling. We'll have an idea. And the best case scenario is that they are full participants on Friday. But we'll see once the injury report comes out. We're not allowed to watch practice on Fridays, just like that. All right. Come on through. I see some more stuff here. H. Norman says, I think if Zach was a better OC, we could get away with Ray, Kyle Pitts, and run game. I think that's kind of a harsh criticism just because being a better OC, I mean, he does have a tendency to just want his best players to go out and make plays, right? And you saw that with Darnell Mooney last year. He would look.
If you thought goldenly breaded McDonald's chicken couldn't get more golden, think Golder, because new sweet and smoky special edition gold sauce is here. Made for your chicken favorites. At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
They would just throw the ball up and see what he can do. And you just say, hey, go make a play. Go do something for us. And you saw that with Drake late in the season when Darnell wasn't there. So to your point, yeah, I see what you're saying, but I think that's kind of looking at it a little too cynically, I guess you could say. No, I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think Zach's a fine offensive coordinator. I think he's okay. I think he still has a lot of room that he needs to grow. And again, I have notes, I have things, I have criticisms, I have positives. I have a couple of things that I'm going to keep to myself here just over the next couple of weeks, just until we kind of get more of a sample size. Mad Savage comes in and says, do you think Michael Penix needs to work on ball placement? I think every quarterback in the NFL needs to work on ball placement. I think that's it's a critical skill. It's one that you never stop evolving and working through. Ultimately, yeah, of course he does, but I'd say that he has shown a lot of improvement here. I mean, you talk about his individual accuracy on individual plays. I think largely he throws a really good ball. It's his intermediate passing game, and how does he attack the intermediate game is going to be very important. So more so than ball placement, which I think he's solid. Okay, he's okay at that. It's how is he in the intermediate passing game, because that is a position where if Michael Penix is playing at an elite level, which I think he can reach, I don't think he's done that just yet. We've seen flashes of elite. We haven't seen elite quarterback play yet. I'm not ready to say that, even no matter how good he's been over the first couple of weeks of his career. Elite quarterback play is where I reserve that kind of commentary for the Joe Burrows and the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons, Patrick Mahomes, guys like that. So I reserve that word for them, but I think he does have an elite level deep ball. I think he can do that, but where he is lacking is in that intermediate passing game. And you saw it kind of on display in this game against Tampa. He sailed a couple of passes. There were a couple plays specifically to Drake London where he needs to be a little bit more effective, and he needs to put the ball in a spot where Drake can catch it. He sailed it a few times, but he's also a young quarterback, and these are things that he had to work through. These are things he's continued to work through, and I think that largely what I've seen from him in practice is pretty effective, but it's different on Sundays. Obviously, it's different on Sundays, and you only have one opportunity to do it in some cases. You don't get to blow the whistle, and run a play again. So it's always different on Sundays, but he always finds another gear. He makes the right play in the right moment, and I think he does a really good job of that. But it's the consistency of being able to do it over and over and over again. That's what made the greats great, right? And I think that's what he needs to improve upon before he gets up into that level of elite quarterback. But again, 5-week sample size will keep on coming through. August 809 says, this is a must win for this regime. 0-2 is damn near, or it's near impossible to make the playoffs. It's not impossible. It's not impossible by any means. It lowers your odds dramatically. I want to say it's like 160 or so, 150 teams or whatever. I can't remember the exact number. So there are a lot of teams who make the playoffs after an 0-2 start. But it just makes it very difficult. The Baltimore Ravens did it last year. We saw I believe the Bills did it recently. The Bengals did it in 2023. I mean, look, it happens. But the difference is those are teams with elite offenses. Those are teams with proven commodities at the quarterback position, with proven identities, with head coaches who've been there before. I mean, that Bengals team had just played in a Super Bowl, right, at that point. The Ravens have been the MVP level quarterback, right? So that August 809, I think that's kind of what your kind of point is. But getting to the playoffs after an 0-2 start makes it a whole hell of a lot more difficult. And I think for this regime, it is a critical game. It is not a must-win game necessarily, but no more than every game in the NFL is a must-win game. We talked by the end of the season, the differences between a team who goes and wins 7 games and a team that wins 11 games is not as big as one might think. But that's how these games go. It's the NFL. And a lot of games are decided just by 3, 4, 5 points. And that's the nature of it. But how do the Falcons step up? This is a critical game for them. To your point, August. We'll keep on rolling through. Rolling. Harry Marshall says, I think Bijan should primarily be used as a wide receiver till Drake and Mooney are 100%. Let Algier be the running back till then. That's an interesting point. I think Bijan is going to be a jack of all trades for this Falcons offense, even when the team is 100%. He is the best player on this team. And I think when this offense is at its best, you have Bijan Robinson in that sort of role where he can kind of be all over the place. And you just want to get the ball in his hands in space and let him make some magic. We saw that against Tampa. We saw that on third play of the game, he takes the ball 50 yards for a touchdown and he just got into space. Bijan is as good as it gets when it comes to open space, right? You want to see that level of explosiveness enter into his game. But I think that's going to come in time, and I think it will eventually. But ultimately, I see where you're coming from. He's not going to line up as a wide receiver. He might line up in a slot or something like that. But just kind of positionless football for Bijan Robinson. But Tyler Algier is somebody who I absolutely trust to take the bulk of carries if he has to. He is proven capable of being a bell cow back for this team. So to your point, you have variability right here. And I don't think he's ever going to be a wide receiver necessarily, just because it's a different skill set. You're asking him to do different things, but I think he has some of those capabilities that you just find ways to get him the football. I think that's really what he's going to be. Yeah, here you go. And Harry follows it up, says, or just give him 30 touches at wide receiver, running back. 30 touches a game is a lot in the NFL. You saw it last year. He had a very high usage rate last year, and he was at about 24 touches per game, 23 touches per game. And if you get him to that, then, I mean, it's risky. It's risky to give your best player too many touches. In a perfect world, you're probably getting your best player the ball 18 or 19 times, and he touched the ball 18 times. I'd like to see him touch it a little bit more. But guys like Saquon Barkley, they get beat up by the end of a season, and you need them when they're at their best. But now you need them in the playoffs. But the thing is, this Falcons team hasn't made the playoffs. They need to get there first. So one thing at a time here. But look, if this team needs to have him touch the ball 30 times, you got some pretty big issues just in general. But he's your best player. So you're going to lean on him, especially if he is the healthy guy and the guy that you can lean on. I think he's capable of doing that. We'll keep on rolling through. I see a lot of people just jumping in. A lot of great comments here. Trying to get through and read some of these as best I can. Kiara says Vikings are a kind of light 2 on defense. I don't know what they are weight-wise. I need to go back and actually watch them. Check out heights and weights and things like that. I haven't actually done that, Kiara. So, but I do know that they're very effective, and I know that Flores is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. And look, the guy's very good, and he's going to cause some problems for Michael Penix, and I think he's got to be on his best. And you help him by running the ball well. Let's see. Harry Marshall Wood III. Another comment here from you, Harry. You're having a day here. Says Pitts is definitely worth some large amount of chunk plays, but he's not somebody you want to run the offense through. No, I don't think he is the guy that you want to run the offense through. I tend to agree, Harry. This is a guy who I think is at his best when you can get him the ball 8 times a game, and he can come out and he can make some plays happen and kind of get him in space and let him make some plays like that. That's really the best case scenario for Kyle Pitts. What we saw from him on Sunday, 60 yards receiving, 8 targets. Great. I'll take that every single week. if I can get that from him. That puts him on like 1,000-yard pace. That's about as good as you can ask for from Kyle, especially given the last couple of years. And I think he had some no-shows. And as long as you don't have anything like that, then you'll be okay. But he's not to the point where I would feel comfortable running an offense through him. He's shown that he's talented. He's shown that he can do things and have big moments. But until I see him consistently be able to do it, I'm not going to lean on him, me being Zach Robinson or this Falcons offense. Let's come on through here. Harry Marshall Wood III comes in and says, I think Penix will throw for more yards, 327, but we will rush for 89 yards. I think 89 yards, 90 yards is probably about what I would expect here rushing wise. It's right about what they average in yards allowed defensively on the ground. They averaged about 93 yards allowed. I think if you can get to the 100-yard plateau, I think that's your target. Obviously, your target is 100 yards every game, but I think if the Falcons can get to 100 yards, I think that's indicative that they are finding success on offense, and that opens up things for the rest of the offense. And I think the Falcons are at their best when they're in that sort of situation. Let's keep on rolling through. Michael Ronquillo hits the red and black hearts. What's up, man? Appreciate you. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the love. Gregory Bennett Gregory C. Bennett Sr. says, London plays. I like your optimism. I think he does play. Raheem Morris expressed his confidence that the Falcons wide receiver 1 was going to play. I think I'm confident that Drake is going to play. I don't know what the full extent of his injury was. And maybe if the injury happens early, maybe we see him come back into that game. But it happened late. Halfway through the fourth quarter or so is on that last touchdown drive that they had. And there was the one where Michael Penix comes in and is like, just does the heroic stuff. But if he plays, I think the Falcons are at their best. And I mean, he's not going to be 100%, but it's the NFL. You're never going to be at 100%. But we'll keep on rolling through. Millie Mills says, Koo might be good as done. Parker sounds like he's been told he's the man now or something. He hasn't been told that as far as I know, Millie. I think he's going to have as much of an opportunity to show that he's the guy this week as Youngway will. I do think that Koo is going to be the guy. That's my opinion. I'm not basing that on anything that I've heard from camp or from the staff or anything else like that. But I think ultimately the leash is very small. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. And that's going to be something that evolves throughout the course of the rest of this week. But I don't think that we should be quite so ready to shoo him out the door as much as some people say. But we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with all of it. Gregory Bennett says, play action and naked boots free up a lot. I think play action is something that I want to see more from Zach Robinson. I want to see a little bit more of it just in general. That opens up a little bit of intermediate passing game that we were talking about, because even if you get that defense to take that one step forward and it opens up that half second in the NFL is an eternity, right? So if you can get that little moment of time, that moment of hesitation, maybe that opens up a little bit of that deeper stuff. And but you need to run the ball effectively. I mean, that's the way it goes. If you have an offense that's not running the ball effectively and you have a defense that's bottling you up, maybe you can get their eyes diverted for a second, but you're not physically going to get them to take that step up if they're not sold that you're going to be able to run the ball on them, at least on that front four, which we'll see. We'll see. I think that's going to be a very important thing here for the team. But play action, I think, would help. I think play action ultimately would help a whole lot. H. Norman says, Penix seems like a second half quarterback, or am I tripping? I think he plays his best football when the moment requires it. I don't think you're tripping necessarily. I think that he is at his very best when he is required to be. 2-minute drills where he has to step up and will the team down the field on fourth down and goal. And he has to literally by a fingertip get a football across the plane. When he has to make a heroic throw to Kyle Pitts like he did against the Commanders last year, where he has to lead a game-winning drive or game-tying drive against the Carolina Panthers, he steps up in those moments. And he's shown that he's fully capable of doing that. I don't think it's as much about the second half as much as it is, hey, I got to go make a play, so I'm going to go make a play. And that's where Penix, I think, is at his best. And I think that's where if Zach Robinson can bottle that up and kind of deploy that throughout the course of the game, I think that's even better. But we're, again, still very early into his career. Anthony L says, just joined. The one thing I want to see is us change up the run. That motion with Warner was so predictable and bad. I'd say that he was largely, Zach Robinson's always been kind of predictable in that kind of way, but the difference is Charlie Warner wins, right? He's been very effective at just winning his one-on-ones. And I'd say, I said it earlier in the pod, so welcome in, Anthony. I think I mentioned it at one point, but I'd say that Charlie Warner had one of his worst games as a Falcon on Sunday. It was not a very good game from him. And especially when you have an outside zone scheme, you need to win on the outside. And if you're not winning on the outside, you're going to get tackled for loss, And I think the play that you're referring to is the goal line play where you have Bijan that shoots out to the outside the moment after Michael Penix has the heroic first down run, right? And he sweeps out to the left side. And I think it was Drake had to block down. You have a pulling player, and then Warner has to block down too. And then Bijan's got to get out, and he's got to beat one guy, right? And he beat that one guy. Bijan did. It's just no one else did their job, and he got tackled for around the 5-yard line. You're not going to win a lot of games like that. And you need, ultimately, it's not about being predictable. It's about winning your matchups. And the Falcons have largely been good at doing that, especially in the Zach Robinson tenure. For the most part, they're pretty solid at winning those matchups. But one of the big guys who did that is Caleb McGarry, and he's not healthy. He's not here anymore. But let's keep on rolling through. Unnormalized says, man, Zach can't disguise nothing. No, I don't think that's one thing that I think has been one of his shortcomings here, just in general, his disguising of plays and everything. And I think, again, I said this earlier as well. I think he didn't get a lot of criticism last year just because of Kirk Cousins taking up a lot of oxygen in the room and taking a lot of the attention of everybody because of the way that he was playing, and it just wasn't giving this team a chance to win. But Zach is going to be under the microscope here in the early parts of the season. Well, really the entire season. He's got to step up, and he's got the weapons to be very effective. It's just that he's got to come out and come in and do it. But appreciate everybody. Thank you so much to everyone. You guys had a lot of awesome comments, a lot of great support here. We had well over 100 folks who've joined us here in this pod. So big thank you to everybody. You guys make this possible. And again, I really appreciate all of you great folks, and just talking Falcons with you guys. I really do very much enjoy it. Remember, Scott and Nick, they're going to be back on Monday. They're going to have your reaction to everything just right after the game finishes up. And we'll try to, maybe we'll try and see what we can do after the game finishes. But they'll be back here on Monday for sure. But if there's any content that you want to see, make sure to drop a comment. Make sure to let me know. Give me a follow at GChapATL. But we will be back on Tuesday to recap what happens in this one. It's the Minnesota Vikings and the Atlanta Falcons. So make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. Stay up to date, especially if you're over there on YouTube. But if you're on Twitter, give me a follow at GChapATL. Check out all the content that we have coming out there, or just head over to Falcons on SI. That's si.com/NFL/Falcons. Get your fix there too. But my name is Garrett Chapman for Falcons on SI. This is the Falcons Podcast. I'll see you all very soon. But until next time, go Falcons.